guys, it is Carl Brown for GuitarLessons365.com. Got a great one for you today. We're going to learn how to play Starlight by Muse. And I've also arranged that little keyboard or piano part for guitar. Now, it's an octave lower than you hear on the recording, so you can just move everything up 12 frets if you want to sound that same range. But it sounds great down here too, so I'm just going to kind of do it down here. So let's check this out real quick, this intro riff, and then I'll go through all the actual guitar parts of the song too. But this one happens a lot in the song, and it's probably the most identifiable riff. And please, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please click subscribe. And even if you are subscribed, make sure you ring that little bell with a little notification bell so you'll know when I release new lessons. All right, let's get to it. So we're in standard tuning here, and I'm going to start with this B major triad. Just a little arpeggio across. So it's just the 4th fret. It happens slow enough that you don't really have to bar it. Just go. Just move your finger over it. It's a pretty slow moving melody. So we have just 4 on the B, then the G, then the D. Then we have this. Now that is just 4/5 on the B string. And when you get to that 5 on the B string, it's the beginning of a C sharp minor arpeggio, which is just 5 on the B, 6 on the G, and 6 on the D. So we have this. Then we're going to have 5/4 on the B string, over to 6 on the G. It's kind of like a little transition melody that they do. And then we have our next arpeggio, which is a G sharp minor arpeggio. And that is the 4th fret again on the B, 4th fret on the G, and then this time the 6th fret on the D string. So we have this. So all together so far. And then we're going to go back up like we did the first time, 4/5 on the B. And from this 5th fret here, we're going to go into an E major arpeggio. So that's 5 on the B, 4 on the G string, and then 6 on the D. So coming from that previous arpeggio, the G sharp minor, and then we're going to end it with that same little transition melody, the 3-note thing that we did before, which is just 5/4 on the B, the 6 on the G, and then you just start the whole thing over. And then we had the first verse, which really has nothing but really bass guitar under it. And when we get back around to the second verse is where you start hearing the first actual guitar parts. And that's on a clean guitar setting. So I'm going to switch over to that. And sounds like this. All right, so he's basically picking across just the B and the E string, and it's not a very consistent pattern that he's doing. So let me just get the notes down in the left hand first, and we'll talk about what's going on the right. So it's basically this top note at all times. So the 7th fret always on the high E string. And there's just a melody that's going on along with it on the B string. And that melody is on the 7th fret at first, then down to 5. So I'm just hanging out there with the 7th fret on the high E string the whole time. And then you kind of stay there again on the 5th, 5, then down to 4. And then you pick 4 again and slide it back up to 5. and just kind of randomly pick across those two strings. So we have this. And then we basically start again, but the melody's more straightforward. We just played 7, 5, 4, 5. So it's a pretty simple part. Now for the right hand, I'm just kind of just going by ear, not really having a consistent pattern, just going. So you can just kind of down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down. So just kind of like that. Don't obsess about it. When you watch him do it live, he really doesn't do a very consistent thing there. Sometimes he'll hit the high E string twice. Or it's really, I think, whatever mood he's in. But as long as you're getting the right notes and the right timing of the notes on the B string, and that, like I said, the first time through when he goes 5, 4, and then sliding back to the 5, you're going to sound fine. All right, so it's a pretty simple part, but then we have the big rock riffs come in at the 1 minute and I think it's the 26-second mark. I can't read my own handwriting, but it sounds like this. All right, so a lot of power chords and some major chords up top. So you can play this basically. This is something that Matthew Bellamy does a lot too. He'll play a power chord and he'll kind of slide back into it. So you're going to hear this sometimes, but he doesn't really do it consistently always at the same spot. So really use your ear and just, you know, wherever you want to throw it in, throw it in. He doesn't always do it live, the same part that he does it on the album. But just, we have this power chord built off the 4th fret of the A string. So it's 4th fret on the A, 6 on the D, 6 on the G. All right, basic power chord. And you kind of slide back into it. Then the 2nd fret power chord off the low E string. Then the power chord built off the 6th fret of the A string. And back to the 4th fret power chord off the low E. So we have this so far. And you're going to move that up now to the 5th fret on the same strings. Then go to an E major chord. So this is the low E open. And you're just basically 7th fret there on the A string and bar the 9th fret across the D, G, the B. So we have this. Then go back to the that A power chord, and then go back to a major chord, but just 1 fret lower, down at 6th fret there. Now you can do the full major chord. Sometimes live, I'll just play the power chord. So whatever you think sounds the best. All right, so after we get through that section, we have really our first little arpeggio section. And it is going to sound like this, which, once again, this is a little different on the album than the way you'll see him play it live. And I'll explain why in a second. But I'll play it closer to the version of the album here. So it sounds like this. So you can see what I'm doing there. It might sound a little bit empty at the very end, and I'll explain why in a second. Now he has a delay pedal that's going with this too, so it's running an 8th note delay. So sometimes it sounds like he's hitting the note on the G string twice, but he's not. The second sound of it is the actual delay sounding that note. So we have a very consistent pattern, at least, that is reversed halfway through. So let me explain. We're going to start here. Here, this little chord shape, we have just the 7th fret on the high E, 9th on the B, and then eighth on the G. So you're just going to pick from the high E string to the B, the G, back to the B. So that's the picking pattern at the beginning for the first half of the riff. Let's cross those three strings. So up, up, down, down, up, down, down. Then take your index finger and move it back to the 6th fret on the high E string. Do the same picking pattern once, and then move the 9th fret down to the 8th fret on the B string. So we have this. All right, then just take this shape and move it up 1 fret and do the same picking pattern again twice. Now we get to the second half of it, which has a reverse picking pattern, and it looks like this. Actually, it's just you just do it twice, so it's not really the whole second half. It's the very end. Now let's look at the left hand real quick, though, because this is a little bit of a big stretch. I'm barring across the 7th fret, across the B and the high E string, and you're reaching all the way up with your pinky at the 11th fret on the G. So we have those 3 notes, those 3 strings, and then we're just going to pick from the G string now to the B, up to the high E, back down to the B. So we basically reverse the pattern. Instead of going down and then back up, or going up and then back down, in pitch, that is. So we have, so down, down, up, up, and then move the note down to the 9th fret there on the G. And then we start over. Now, this is where he plays it differently live than he does on the recording. On the recording, whenever you start over, it's always from that initial picking pattern that starts on the high E string. But right here, what Matthew Bellamy does live, because it's kind of awkward jumping to that high E string. It's obviously 2 different guitars, two different guitar parts there. He continues with the same picking pattern live that he does here, starting from here, where it's the one that starts from the G string. And then when we start over to that pattern and that first chord shape, instead of starting on the top high E string, he starts on the G. So he does that same pattern from here. And then when he gets to the shape where he moves this down to the 6th fret, that's when he starts from the picking pattern again, like it's supposed to be from the high E string. So you can choose to play it the way he does it live, which is this. Or you can just do it closer to the album version, but it's going to make the very end of it sound a little empty. Because you got to jump back, you got to miss that. You can't hear that note go down to the 8th. So your choice. I just wanted to put it out there, but you just repeat that a few times, and then the last time we just take this shape, and you're going to now go to, instead of just that many strings, move it up to the 9th fret there, and the 11th fret here on the G and the B, but also add the 11th fret on the D string. And just kind of pull the chord down. Just, you don't really want it to sound musical. He's trying to give it this kind of chaotic feel. But he kind of grabs this chord and then, you know, kind of goes off to the next section. But that's just the very end of that arpeggio part. All right, now we have the next arpeggio section happens at the 2-minute and 38-second mark, and it's quite a bit easier. Sounds like this. So we're going to start here at the 4th fret on the G string and kind of going across back and forth between the G and the open B string. And then down to the 3rd fret on the G. And you see that at the very end there, I kind of just hit the open B twice in a row. Just kind of sounds right to me, but there's a lot of, leeway here. It's not very consistent here either. And then we have the first fret on the G string to the open B. And then we add, basically keep the same chord there. We're just going to add the second fret on the D string and just pick across, kind of just pick across those 3 strings. That's pretty much all it is. To repeat. All right, so now let's take it back to the end, really close to the end of the song. We go back into that same power chord riff. This is at the 2-minute and 54-second mark. I'm going to show you this riff again that we did earlier because there's a little variation in there. Let's see if you can pick it up. All right, so it's the same riff, and remember you can slide into some of these. But instead of going back to that power chord of the 4th fret of the low E string, he plays the 4th fret on the G, 6 on the D, and 6 on the A twice. And then the rest of the riff is the same. So basically he's replacing that one chord with just the arpeggio version of that chord. All right, then we get to the very end, the last riff we have, which is another kind of big rock riff. It's at the 3-minute and 9-second mark, and it sounds like this. All right, so it's just those chords. So it's an ending here, but you see how it kind of slid down there after the second time. They do that too. They just kind of, and just start the progression over again. Just a power chord there off the 4th fret of the low E, and to the 6th fret of the A string. You can play it as major chords up here when you get up here, then up to 7, and then the power chord of the 7th fret of the low E. So we have that. Just those 4 chords repeated. All right, now after the very end, you're just going to take this and then goes back. So I just basically replaced the last time playing it. Instead of playing the note power chord to the 7th fret of the low E, I'll put the 9th fret on there. Just take that up 2 frets. And then that's pretty much all she wrote. It goes back to that little main riff that we did at the beginning. And that's the end of the tune. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you again soon for GuitarLessons365.com.